Deep in the tropical jungle to the west of Everdell Valley lies the country of Emerland, a vibrant land known for its artistic and musical culture and its abundance of natural resources. So gather your workers and your helpers, put on your exploration hat, and let's learn the 1 to 4 player game, Everdell Emerland, from Tabletop Tycoon, who helped sponsor this video. In this game, you'll send your critter workers to various locations on the board to gather resources, and use those resources to play cards face up in front of you, forming your jungle city and helping you score points. But before anyone scores any points, let's get the game set up and ready to play. Place the game board in the center of the table. If playing with 3 players, add this overlay to the lower right portion of the board. And if playing with 4, add the other 2 overlays in their corresponding spots here and here as well. We'll be setting up for a 3-player game. Next, place the Lost City path board above the game board and the 3D jungle ruins right on top of it, like this. If playing without the 3D jungle ruins, just make sure that the Lost City path side of the board is face up. Take the artifact tokens, put them in the draw bag, and place it near the board. Next, shuffle the deck of jungle cards and place 6 of them face up on the plateau in the center of the main board. Note that these cards are double-sided. The side with the cost and this darkened lower portion is the face-up side. We'll talk more about the other side in a bit, but for now, just understand that this is the basic starting side of the card. If there are any duplicate cards in the plateau, stack them together by name and refill the empty spots from the deck. Take the remaining deck and place it somewhere near the board as well. And remember, since they're double-sided, it's okay for players to see the top card. Next, shuffle the smaller realm cards into a face-down deck and place it on the lower left of the Lost City path board. Reveal 3 of them and place them in the corresponding spots across the top of the main board. Place all the resources near their designated spots beside the game board, and the point tokens, emeralds, and harps in separate piles somewhere nearby. Then roll the 4 orange river market dice and place them on the lily pads in the river. Finally, place stacks of point tokens on each space of the Lost City path as indicated by these icons. Note that a 2-player game only uses the most valuable spaces. Each player now chooses a color and takes all of the worker critters and helpers of that color. On the lower section of the board, they will place 1 helper in autumn, 1 worker in winter, and 2 workers along with 1 helper in spring. Then each player places 1 worker on the first space of the Lost City path. This is their Archaeologist. Each player should now be left with 2 workers and 2 helpers, and they should also each gain 1 emerald from the general supply. The most musical player goes first and draws 3 jungle cards from the deck. The second player, 4 cards, and so on. And with that, the game is all set up and ready to play. Starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, players will take turns until the end of the game. And on your turn, you must perform one of the following actions. Place a worker with or without a helper. Place a helper by itself. Play a card. Use an Artisan Card. Excavate with your Archaeologist. Or prepare for season. Placing a worker is one of the core actions of the game and can often be an appealing option for your first turn. Place one of your workers on any eligible location on the board and perform the action there immediately. You can also choose to bring along one of your helpers as a guide. If you do so, activate the action there twice. If another worker, either yours or an opponent's, is already at the location, you must bring along one of your helpers to act as a negotiator in order to place there. In this case, though, this helper does not activate the space twice. You would need to bring along 2 helpers to do that. One as the negotiator to permit access, and one as the guide to activate the space twice. And in the very rare event that you can't place a worker because all of the spaces are full, and you don't have a helper to act as a negotiator, you cannot place a worker as an action on your turn. But if you can place a worker, there are a few things to know about the various locations. Green locations provide you with resources. For example, you could get 3 bamboo at this location, or 2 figs at this one. and this space gives you 1 marble and lets you draw 1 card from the deck. You may have any number of your workers on a green space as long as you use a helper as a negotiator for each one after the first. The river market is a unique location. Gain resources as shown on any 2 of the dice in the river market. If you double the action space with a helper, gain the results of each die you choose twice. Fountain locations are special. You may only have 1 of your workers on each fountain space at a time, and you may not bring a helper to act as a guide. So you cannot activate these spaces twice. You can, however, bring a helper as a negotiator if another player is already at one of these locations. At the realm location, pay 2 emeralds from your supply to gain 1 of the face-up realm cards, or draw the top card of the realm deck. Place the realm card in your play area. It represents your exploration into further areas of the jungle. Each realm that you have allows you to play an additional card into your city, and scores based on the conditions of the realm, which we'll cover later. At the song location, pay 1 emerald to gain 1 harp to your play area, and also draw jungle cards up to your hand limit of 6. The board overlays are also fountain locations. In a 3-player game, you'll have this space, where you draw 2 cards from the plateau into your hand, gain 1 emerald, and gain the reward shown on 1 of the market dice. And be sure to replenish the plateau after you've drawn both cards. A 4-player game adds these 2 spaces as well. Here, you'll gain an emerald and get an artifact from the bag, and this one has you pay 1 emerald to gain the reward of all 4 river market dice. Another place you'll find locations are on destination cards. We'll talk about playing cards in just a moment, but for now, just know that you can recognize a destination card by the red color behind the card's name, and of course the worker space centered above that. You may place on any red destination card that you've played into your city to activate their ability, but you may only have up to 1 of your workers on a destination card at a time. Construction destinations also have a visiting player space in the upper right-hand corner. You can visit these cards in other players' cities by placing a worker on this space. When you do, you'll take the action on the card, but the owner of the card will gain point tokens from the supply as shown beneath the space. It's important to note that helpers cannot be used as guides or negotiators on destination cards. And speaking of helpers, they can do a few things on their own. There are 3 locations where you can place a helper all by themselves. 2 of these brown spaces are on the main board and may only be visited by a helper. When placing one on the upgrade space, pay 1 emerald from your supply to upgrade any 1 card in your city, which we'll learn about more soon. At the mooring space, you can place a helper to draw the top 2 cards from the deck or gain the reward on 1 of the market dice. Helpers may only be placed on these locations 1 at a time, but they can hold any number of helpers. And you don't need to bring an extra helper as a negotiator, even if the space is already occupied. There are some critter destination cards that you may have in your city with a space that's half green and half brown. You may place a worker or a helper on these cards to activate them. But if the card has either a worker or helper already there, you may not visit it again until the space is empty. And now it's time to learn about playing a card. As your action, you may play 1 card into your city in front of you. To play a card, you must pay the resources shown on the left side of the card from your supply back to the general supply. Then place the card face up into your city. And cards may be played either from your hand or from the 6 face-up cards in the plateau. If you play a card from the plateau, remember to refill it from the deck at the end of your turn if necessary. All of the jungle cards in the game are double-sided, so when you first play a card, play it with its basic side face up. This is the side with the dark area at the very bottom, which shows the upgraded ability that's on the other side of the card. You'll also find the resource cost for playing the card, the end game point value, whether it's a critter or construction card, the quantity of the card in the deck, and of course the card's ability. The upgraded side has some of the same information, but note the upgraded ability, point value, as well as the upgrade flower icon in the lower left corner. Just remember, all cards in the deck and in the plateau and in your hand should have their basic side face up. Most cards in your city will be upgraded using the upgrade space that we've already mentioned, but when playing a critter card, you might use a harp to play it with its upgraded side face up and for 0 resources. Before playing a critter card, you may place a harp from your supply on an upgraded construction card in your city. Then play a critter card of any color into your city for free, but play it with its upgraded side face up. Each harp remains on the card where it was placed, and you may only have 1 harp per color of construction in your city. For example, if you used a harp on an upgraded green construction, you could not use one on another upgraded green construction later. The game has a variety of jungle cards that you can play. There are 6 color card types, but they all fall into 2 main categories: critters and constructions. Critters cost figs to play, or, as already mentioned, can be played for free by using a harp. Constructions will cost some combination of bamboo, leaves, or marble. And unlike other games in the Everdell world, Emerald cards do not have the common or unique keywords. Your city may comfortably duplicate cards. And within those 2 categories, there are 6 color types that all function a little bit differently. Production cards activate immediately when played, and also when you prepare for autumn and spring. Governance cards activate as described on the card, granting bonuses when you play cards or perform certain actions. However, these cards do not trigger themselves when played. A Traveler card will activate only once, immediately when played. As mentioned earlier, Destination cards activate when you place a worker on them, or a helper in the case of a critter destination. They do not activate when played. With an Artisan card, you may, as your action on your turn, discard any 1 card from your hand beneath an Artisan card in your city to activate its ability. In the case of the Trade Gate, pay any 1 resource to gain any 2 resources. But note that there is a limit to the number of cards you may have beneath an Artisan card, shown here on this arrow icon. Finally, a Prosperity card is for end-of-game scoring. They are worth their listed points and the bonus points if you meet the requirement on the card. For example, the River Wharf would be worth 4 points, plus an additional 3 if you have at least 4 production cards in your city at the end of the game. It is important when playing cards to take note of the timing involved, so follow this sequence of actions when applicable. First, pay the resources or use a harp to play the card. Then, place the newly played card into your city. Next, if the card is a production or traveler card, resolve its effect. For example, Miner's Camp is a traveler card, so you would gain 2 emeralds immediately. And finally, resolve the triggered effects from any governance cards already in your city. For example, if you had the Canopy Highway in your city when you played a card, this is when you would gain a card from the plateau. And as I mentioned earlier, if you do play a card from the plateau, just be sure to refill that space at the end of your turn. Before we move on from the play a card action, there are a number of additional card rules that you're going to want to keep in mind. You have 12 spaces in your city that may be filled with 1 card each, including duplicates. When your city is full, you may not play any more cards. Each realm that you have grants you 1 additional space in your city to play a card. Anytime you get to draw a card, draw it from the deck, unless explicitly instructed otherwise. Each player has a strict hand limit of 6. You may never draw beyond 6 cards. Anytime you discard a card, discard it from your hand. As I mentioned earlier, if there are any duplicate cards in the plateau, stack them in the same spot and refill the empty spot from the deck. If you play a card from such a stack, the remaining card stays in the plateau. If at any time you must draw a card from the deck or replace a card in the plateau, and there are no cards in the deck, just shuffle the discard pile to form a new one. And finally, all card abilities are optional. You don't have to activate a card if you don't want to. But if you do like activating cards, the ones in Emerald are even better when upgraded. Whenever you perform an action that shows the upgrade icon, choose one card in your city and flip it over from its basic side to its upgraded side. The card now has a new ability and is worth one more point. Production and Traveler cards activate when upgraded. Governance cards generally gain a new or improved ability. When a Destination card is upgraded, each player who has a worker or helper on the card gets to activate it. If two players are on it, the owner of the card gets to activate first. And note that the owner of the card gains the listed point tokens only if the opponent decides to also activate it. Either way, all workers and helpers remain on the card. Upgraded Prosperity cards still have end-of-game scoring, but the goal is now easier to attain and worth more points. And upgraded Artisan cards now have a new ability. Any cards already beneath the Artisan card remain there and still count toward the total amount allowed. Upgrading is an important part of the game, and remember, regardless of color type, you must have an upgraded construction in order to use a harp, and you may only have one harp per color of upgraded construction in your city. As previously mentioned, using an Artisan card is another action you can take, and doing so counts as your turn. As your action, you may discard any one card from your hand beneath an Artisan card already in your city. When you do, activate the effect on the Artisan card, and remember that the number of cards that you can have beneath an Artisan card is limited to what is shown on this arrow icon. Another action that you can choose to take, and one that's unique to Emerland, is to excavate with your Archaeologist. As an action, you may move your Archaeologist forward one space on the path toward the Lost City. To do so, pay the number of resources shown on the next section of the path and discard at least one card from your hand. Then move your Archaeologist forward to the next space and take the pile of the most point tokens from the space if there are any left. Then, for every card that you discarded, draw one artifact token from the bag. These are public information. Choose one of them to keep and return the rest to the bag. You may only move your Archaeologist up to the space allowed for the season you are currently in, as shown by the icons above the spaces. So at the beginning of the game, while you're in summer, for example, you'll only move your Archaeologist one space. But keep in mind, you don't have to move your Archaeologist if you don't want to. If you don't move your Archaeologist during the early seasons of the game, you could move, for example, 3 spaces while in winter, but only one space per turn. The final spaces on the path represent you discovering the Lost City. When moving into the Lost City, place your Archaeologist on the open space worth the most endgame points. Once there, you cannot move any more spaces for the rest of the game. Before we move on to the Prepare for Season action, let's learn a little bit more about artifacts and realm cards. Anytime you perform an action showing the artifact symbol, draw that many artifacts from the bag. No matter how many you draw, though, you may always keep only one of the artifacts. The rest must be returned to the bag. Many of them give you an immediate reward, as shown on the top of the artifact. Other artifacts are simply worth points at the end of the game. This one, for example, lets you immediately draw and keep another artifact, and it's worth 2 points at the end of the game. Realm cards, as I mentioned earlier, will give you one more space in your city to play a card. So for example, with one realm card, you could have up to 13 jungle cards in your city. But they're also worth points at the end of the game based on different aspects in your city. For example, the Waterfall realm card will give you 3 points at the end of the game for every prosperity card in your city, and the Cavern will give you 1 point for every upgraded card you have. And now let's talk about the Prepare for Season action. If you've placed all of your workers, you may take this action, but you do not have to have placed all of your helpers. To prepare for season, start by retrieving all of your workers and helpers from the board and destination cards. Then perform the steps for the next season you're preparing for. The game begins with you in summer, so the first season you'll prepare for is autumn, with spring being the final season you'll prepare for in the game. And it's very important to note that players don't have to perform the Prepare for Season action at the same time. Only you will prepare for season if you choose this action, and other players will continue with their next turn as normal. When you prepare for autumn, gain 1 helper and activate all green production cards in your city in any order you wish. And if you're the first player to prepare for autumn, you will also re-roll the 4 river market dice. When preparing for winter, gain 1 worker and an emerald. The first player to prepare for this season will also re-roll all the market dice. This player will also discard all the cards from the plateau and then refill it. And preparing for spring means that you gain 2 workers and 1 helper, and once again activate all green production cards in your city in any order. And the first player to do this will once again re-roll all of the market dice one last time. With that, you know all of the actions you can take on your turn. Players will take these actions moving through the seasons over the course of the game until they reach the end of spring, and they cannot or do not want to take any more actions. When this happens for a player, they are finished with the game and must pass. And once you've passed, you cannot come back into the game. Your workers will remain where they are, and other players must still use helpers as negotiators to visit the spaces you occupy. Any unfinished players continue playing until everyone's passed. And once all players have passed, it's time to count up the final score. Add up all of the following to calculate your total points. The base point value of all the jungle cards in your city. Any bonus points earned from prosperity cards. All of your collected point tokens. Any potential points on artifacts. The points of the position of your archaeologist if you made it to the lost city. Any earned points from your realm cards. And finally, 1 point for every 2 leftover resources, including emeralds. And of course, the player with the most points wins. And if there's a tie, check these tiebreakers in this order. First, look at who has the most upgraded cards in their city. Then, who's furthest on the lost city path. Then, who has the most realms. And then finally, who has the most leftover resources, including emeralds. If still tied, the players share the victory. And that is how you play Everdell Emerland. If you have any questions at all, be sure to check the rulebook or feel free to get down in the comments below and ask me anything you'd like. Until next time though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.